Namaste. I'm with Dr. Rammonohar. Welcome.
Thank you.
And he's an Ayurvedic expert, a scientist, a Sanskrit scholar, exactly the kind we need to clarify what is about Ayurveda philosophically, metaphysically, in the framework, which is different from the Western system. And so all the terms, all the thinking we do has to be in our framework. And if we just casually translate things to fit the Western framework and impress them, actually we are doing injustice to ourselves. So, Dr. Rammonohar, this is the scope of what we are doing.
Yes.
Can we start with the purpose? The basic premise is that there is a balance in the body.
Yeah.
That has to be maintained.
Yes.
And that gets disrupted due to lifestyle, various factors,
yes.
Past karma, whatever. And so we must understand what this balance is, and it is individual for each person.
Yes.
So how would you now, in the Western books, they have a term called homeostasis.
Yes.
So is it the same thing or is it different, and whatever it is, what is this balance?
Yes, I mean, if you really, I'll take up from that word homeostasis. If you look at that, there is no Sanskrit word that is equivalent to homeostasis. Because in Ayurveda, we have terms like Dhatusamya, Dosamya, or Samkhya Yoga. These are the terms that, describe balance. But if you really look at the meaning of these words, they don't come anywhere near homeostasis. So while I would say that definitely there is very clear concept of how the body maintains its balance, they are well expressed through terms, but they don't really match with this modern idea of homeostasis.
So what would be, how would you describe this balance?
Yeah, because if you look at homeostasis, homeostasis is made of two words, homeo, which means maintaining the same state, and stasis means a stable, unchanging situation. Static. And this is where the difficulty arises, because in our thinking, there is nothing that is static in this universe. The body is in a state of continuous flux. Mm-hmm. So to imagine that the body is, preserving itself in a rigid, static state, is contrary to the Ayurvedic way of thinking. Mm.
It's more dynamic than static.
It's very, very dynamic. So in fact, even the word homeodynamics would come closer, even though it is not exactly what Ayurveda means. But the whole thing is that, the environment, the situations in which life is embedded keep changing. Mm. And balance means actually balancing with the environment, not just, balancing from inside.
That's very important. So it is not, this is a very important point, that this balance is not just internal forces and processes being balanced, but all of these being balanced with the rest of the world also. Yes. Rest of the world could mean the physical environment, the whole cosmos, mental relationships, all of that.
All of that. Because this is what Ayurveda calls as Samkhya Yoga, that you have to strike a balance with everything around you. And that is what is health. Health is not defined. Health is an outcome of the interaction of the individual with the rest of the universe, because we believe that the whole universe is interconnected. It is just one whole. And when you talk about even individual health, you cannot ignore.
So describe this, the nature of this balance with some examples to clarify.
Yeah. For example, the most simple illustration that Ayurvedic texts give is about the movement of the seasons. The seasons keep shifting from extreme cold to extreme heat, and then we have the rain. So this is continuously challenging the body to adapt itself. And which is why in Ayurveda, Dinacharya, Ritucharya, these are, daily regimens, seasonal regimens become the cornerstone of, the measures that we have to adapt to maintain health. So for example, in summer, when the external environment becomes very hot, the body has to go into a mode of actually losing heat. So the physiology of the body in summer is very different from that of winter.
Even in a 24-hour cycle?
Yes, even in a 24. We say that in the morning, Vata is dominant, in the afternoon, Pitta is dominant. Even the doshas are never in balance. In the evening, Vata is dominating. The night again it changes. So there is no time where you can say that the body is, in a state of rigid normalcy. The values keep shifting. So what we say as normal is, are the values in proportion to the situations around? Is that response appropriate or not?
So the balance, what constitutes balance in morning may not be the same as what constitutes evening. What constitutes in summer may not be the same as what constitutes in winter. So the balance is therefore not a fixed variable, fixed.
Definitely not. And so Ayurveda uses the term asthai. Asthai is non-static. Everything in the body is asthai. Nothing remains stable.
Right.
And so, but still Ayurveda draws some boundaries. We say that everything moves through the cycle of Kshaya, Vriddhi and Samatva. Kshaya is decreasing, Vriddhi is increasing, and Sama is, coming in between. Now, this is the mechanism that the body uses to achieve balance. What Ayurveda says is, any parameter in the body has the ability to increase it, decrease it, or bring it into a state of, I wouldn't call it normalcy, we call it as a middle state. The body has the ability to modulate it, and this is why the body is able to adapt. So the idea of balance in Ayurveda is very much linked to the concept of adaptation. So only by adapting you achieve the balance.
So it's not like a doctor will do the take a dashboard of Dr. Rammonohar's body and adjust all the settings and say push button, this balance now.
No,
it's not like that.
In fact, the ability of the body to go out of balance is what helps it to survive.
Yes, because it needs to go out of balance to be in balance in another situation.
Situations. When we talk about Samkhya Yoga, it means that the Samkhya Yoga means union.
Right, but that's yoga means.
Yoga is union.
So what is Samkhya?
Samkhya means the appropriate union.
Okay, appropriate union.
Appropriate union with the external environment.
So union could also be a wrong union. So this is an appropriate union.
Yes, Hina Yoga, Mithya Yoga, Ati Yoga. Hina Yoga is inadequate. Ati Yoga is, excess, over adaptation.
Right.
And Mithya Yoga is the wrong adaptation.
Right.
And Samkhya Yoga is the correct adaptation.
Very good.
So Ayurveda says that disease is caused by the other three. That is Hina Yoga, Mithya Yoga and Samkhya Yoga.
Too little, too much or incorrect?
Incorrect. And this lack of adaptation is the root cause of disease. This is a very fundamental concept in Ayurveda. And health is the ability to adapt appropriately.
Very good.
So even in extreme weather conditions, this is the test of health. A very healthy person would be able to quickly adapt to challenging situations.
Yes.
Whereas a less healthy person would crumble even with the slightest changes in the external.
So a healthy person is so fluid in their ability to modify that when the circumstance, context changes, this person adapts and regains the balance.
Yes.
Very interesting.
This is the key concept in Ayurveda. So we look at the body as, it's like the physiology is like a pendulum. It keeps shifting to both extremes, and it can move in any direction, as the situation demands. And making the body in such a flexible, adaptive state is the whole goal of Ayurveda.
What does Samkhya mean? Because you use that term.
Yes. Samkhya means, to equalize. So it's like you say the gradient in both places kind of gets equalized. When you talk about osmosis, when there is a place where there is more salt and the other compartment has less salt, it will get equalized. So that samatva, this word samatva is wrongly understood as body maintaining things within a certain normal value. No, it means equalizing or neutralizing the effect of the external environment and the internal environment, bringing it into a state of balance.
But balance could be also as unequals, or does it have to be equals?
Yeah, it is balancing in the state is that the net effect is, when we say samatva means that the conditions are created for life to express.
But it doesn't have to be that two things have to be the same in order to be balanced. There could also be a balance of
opposites.
Of differences.
Yes.
Different things in balance.
That could also be there. That could also be there. Right. Because in summer, as we said, the body has to lose a certain amount of heat back to the environment. If that heat gradient builds up in the body, then the entire structure will collapse. So here the samatvam is achieved.
Are there processes that kick in or are based on gradients, differences?
Yes, because Ayurveda talks about this concept of balance in terms of gunas, and they are dvandva gunas. You know, they create a nominal scale. It's like a continuum. When you say Ushna and Shita, Guru and Lakhu, they define a continuum. It's like a gradient. And the body is continuously moving like a pendulum across this gradient to achieve the balance of the gunas that is most appropriate for that given situation.
So it could be that, like for instance, you need a voltage difference for current to flow.
Yes.
So maybe if the voltage were not different, was same, then there's no current flowing.
No.
So if you want electricity, you need difference.
That is why the heat and the whole seasonal cycle stimulates the living forms.
So maybe one could say that some of the body processes actually thrive on a differential, a delta difference.
Yes.
And that's the basis.
Exactly. And that is why, this kind of stress is needed for the body to, come alive and flourish. Only thing is, if it goes into an extreme stress, then there is a problem.
Water moves because there's some pressure difference.
Yes.
So blood moves because there's some difference.
Yes.
So you inhale, exhale, all of this because there are some differences in response to which the body is doing these things.
Exactly. And that is what is created by the external. We call this differences, we explain this in the language of the gunas. When the Shita gradient increases, then Ushna is activated.
Right.
And when the other thing happens, the opposite mechanism is set into motion.
So there are differences built in. These differences are not fixed settings.
No.
These differences create processes, and these processes are balanced.
Yes. That's exactly the concept of Dosamya, which is one of the ways in which Ayurveda explains balance of the system.
So there is no absolute, static, fixed concept called normal.
No.
Tell us more about it.
Yeah, because actually, if I can also quote a verse just for the authenticity,
very good.
The Sushruta Samhita tells this very explicitly. Vailakshyanyat shariranam asthayitvad tathaivacha doshadhatu maladinam parinamam na vidyate. Vailakshanyat, shariranam vailakshanya, because each body is different from the other. The parameters, the way it is, the baseline, physiological baseline, it's all very different. And everything is in a flux, asthayitvad. Because of this, there is no fixed measures to decide the normalcy of dosha dhatu. This is a very fundamental statement in the Sushruta Samhita. We can talk about some ranges, but what is normal and what is abnormal cannot be, a very fixed measure.
Even for the same person.
Same person. For the same person and across individuals also.
Right.
Because today we also know that, like if you take blood pressure and many other physiological parameters, even modern science is beginning to understand that for each individual, what is normal is different.
And then commonly people are told that in Ayurveda, the doshas have to be in balance.
Yes.
Now we'll discuss doshas in a later later session. But just tell us what exactly does that mean, that doshas have to be in balance?
Yes, doshas are actually representing this pattern of the movement of the gunas. So the entire movement of the gunas across this gradient is represented through the doshas. So through the doshas we are seeing the shift of these patterns in the body.
Right.
So when we say that in the morning kapha is increased, it means certain gunas have dominated in the body. There is a gradient increase now of shita, snigdha gunas. And in the afternoon when we say pitta has increased, it shows that the entire physiology has now shifted in response to the heat that is, increasing in the external environment. The body physiology also moves. So this is just the pattern of the gunas that represent the gradient, the changes across these gradients. Of course, dosha is a very technical concept and requires, more discussion to get a deeper insight.
So can you summarize this idea of balance? It is not static, it is dynamic. And what are the different terms? You introduce some terms, some Sanskrit terms
Yes.
that are differently used. So can you explain those terms and what's the difference among the terms?
Yes. As I was mentioning, Samkhya Yoga is the key term.
Okay.
And this is important because it puts the internal environment and the external environment into perspective
Right.
and shows their relationship.
Right.
So this, I would say, is the key term
Right.
to talk about balance in Ayurveda.
But is it that my ability to achieve this balance with the external environment requires as a prerequisite that I should have internal balance to begin with?
Yes, that is what I am coming to.
Okay.
So that internal balance is called as Dhatusamya and Dosamya.
Okay.
So only an individual who has this Dhatusamya and Dosamya will be able to achieve Samkhya Yoga. And that is why a single term like homeostasis doesn't convey this picture.
Right.
Only when we stitch all these terms together. And in Ayurveda, we always talk in, not only in Ayurveda, I mean in all ancient knowledge systems where we use Sanskrit, Paryaya Vachana is the key. Because each word, each synonym actually gives you an insight on one aspect of that phenomenon.
Right.
And they are all very context sensitive.
Right.
So where you use a certain term is very important to put things into context and the right perspective.
Right.
So that is why Doshas means one thing, Dhatusamya means one thing, Samkhya Yoga means something.
Right.
So when there is Doshas, there is Dhatusamya.
Right.
And when there is Dhatusamya, then the individual is able to achieve what you call as Samkhya Yoga.
So Doshas leading to Dhatusamya, leading to Samkhya Yoga with the external environment.
When you talk about Doshas, it's actually, we are talking about the body's ability to make these shifts at will. It's the flexibility that the body has to modulate. At will, the body can increase a certain parameter or decrease it or bring it into the center. This is what we call as Doshas. When that is there, then all the structural elements in the body can be maintained, within normalcy. So dhatus are actually the elements, the structural elements that are formed to sustain the body. They are this transformed state of the food that we eat. So every dhatu means that which supports the structure of the body, needs to be, cooked and transformed in a particular way. This transformation will happen only when the doshas are able to kind of, modulate themselves in an appropriate manner. And so when there is functional integrity, there is structural integrity, then only the person can achieve a balance with the external environment.
Very good.
So this is the whole idea of balance in Ayurveda.
Yeah. This is very profound. And I think this is unless a person understands this, this requires serious understanding. Unless they do this, the whole understanding of Ayurveda goes haywire because they think that Ayurveda has this pill for my diabetes or whatever.
This is problem. Like people now say, what dosha I am?
Yeah.
I mean, you are all three doshas because you cannot be just vata, pitta or kapha. I mean, you'll be dead.
Right.
Because that's the most rigid way of looking at your system.
Right.
And these kind of misconceptions are, widespread.
Right. Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here and also hit the bell icon to make sure you get notified. To donate, please click this button.